Okay, I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for January 29th, 2025. Do I have an approval for the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Please join us for a moment of silence, and Councilmember Javed, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome, Donald Shoemaker. Thank you for coming out tonight. We will begin with an opening statement. You can have 3 minutes. After that, we will be taking turns asking you questions. Councilmember Javed is sitting out on the questioning because he, well, you could make your statement.
I believe in a democratic process, so I'm not in favor of appointing somebody for elected seat. So I'm going to sit out there for the interviews.
Also, for our questions, there is a 3-minute timer on the question answers.
And I promise I'm going to take way less time than all of that on every section. We only have 30 minutes, so I promise I will try to be as brief as possible.
Go ahead and start.
All right. Do I need to be closer?
Yeah, probably. Good idea. Yeah, thanks.
I guess for those people maybe at home that are watching, the 6 people on YouTube, maybe it's only 5. I'm Donald Shoemaker, and I live at 8644 Burnside Court. I also own the house that I grew up in 160 Manassas Drive. I've lived in the city for, if I have to think about it, it's a long time, but about 45 years. And I've previously served on the governing body twice, once by appointment and once by election. I have been in this position as the interviewee. I've been on that side as the interviewer, and I've also been in the audience as a nobody, as just a citizen. So I've been in all 3 positions, and I respect all 3 of those. I really think that I come to this from a place of service. I'm very proud to be on the Board of Equalization, representing the city, and I'm also currently on the library board, actually with one of the other interviewees. So whether I'm on the governing body or not on the governing body, I have always served the city. One thing I wanted to mention, it was in one of my questions, and I wanted to highlight it, is, I'm proud that I sit on my state's, our union's state board. And when that newsletter goes out to 3,500 members, it says Donald Shoemaker, Manassas Park, Virginia. And I'm proud of that. And when I'm on the Committee 100, I'm on our programming committee, and I represent Manassas Park. And that's important. I'm really proud that we just had a wonderful session on school safety, and because of my efforts, we were able to have the school's director of safety as one of our panelists, and also one of the officers that just won an FBI award from Manassas City. He sat on our commission as well as the director of safety for Prince William. So I'm proud to represent Manassas Park wherever I am. And with that, let's go to questions.
Thank you. All right, we'll begin with Vice Mayor.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Donald. Appreciate you throwing your hat into the ring.
Congratulations on your new title.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Here's the first question. We just completed a general election in which only 4 individuals ran for seat on the governing body. 3 were incumbents and 1 was new to the process. If you are interested in serving on the governing body, please tell me why you did not apply and run for the seat so that our citizens could have input in your election. And the second part of the question is, if appointed, do you plan to run this November?
Okay. As I said in my opening statement, I've been in multiple positions. In 2013, I was appointed, just like this. And that was actually one of the governing body members went on to be the IT director for the city, actually went on to city staff. And so I was appointed for 1 year, and I ran, and I didn't win. And that's okay, that's the people had their say. I ran in 2016 in the election. I was the only candidate on the ballot, and we had 8 write-ins. So that was a very different dynamic, to have just not enough candidates even for the amount of seats that we had. So I wasn't really sure who I was running against, because I was running against everybody, including people I'd went to school with here in Manassas Park, people I knew personally. So yeah, I mean, I've been in a lot of different positions in terms of being appointed, in terms of running and winning, in terms of running and losing. So I'm not afraid to lose an election, because I have put myself in that position. I have gone in front of the voters multiple times, and I'm proud of that, because you have to earn the vote each and every time. And the citizens have had, citizens are comfortable. But actually, it's funny is several people came up to me during the 24 season and asked why I wasn't running. And, I just, at that moment, I'm doing a certificate program, and I'm going back to school so that I can get a different job. You might have heard the post office has been in the news quite a bit recently. And so, there's some personal factors that I chose not to, because I wanted to be able to run a race that I had time for and be proud of. Because running a race, as many of you know, is a reflection of your own self and your values and issues and your time. And how you present to the public is very important. And so that's why I did not do that. Because campaigning, if you do it correctly, is very time consuming, door knocking and fundraising and doing mailings. So to that question, I'm not going to presuppose November of 2025. We're right here. I'm not going to presuppose an appointment or a non-appointment at this point. So I don't know how to answer your second part of your question. I will see where we're at now and then make a decision, because, take one position and one race and one thing at a time.
Thank you.
Okay. On the governing body, we must work collaboratively. How would you ensure productive relationships with other board members, the city manager, and our community?
Well, I'm going to take the second part first. I'm excited to meet our new city manager, who I haven't had the chance to meet yet. I know he's been on the job just a few weeks, maybe. I know that we just did the appointment, I guess, at the end of December or beginning of January. So I'm looking forward to seeing who you selected, because I've actually was part of the process in the last 2 city managers. I actually was on the governing body when we hired Laszlo in 2017, and I was also in governing body in 2014 when we hired the last city manager. And I'm going to add something in that you didn't ask, but I'm going to offer it anyway. That vote for 2 city managers ago, I will admit, was a hard vote for me, and it was a mistake that I made. And I voted for her to give her a 7-0 vote so that she would have a strong support coming in, even though I had severe reservations. And in hindsight, I wish I would have done more, because she ended up leaving 26 months after her appointment.
Oh, who is this? I don't know who you're talking about.
It was the city manager before Laszlo.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was not Laszlo, it was the person before. And so it was a learning experience for me, because that was the first one that I had gone through. And I feel like we did very well on the second time in terms of the people that we had and the people to select from, and because it is a nationwide process. And, we're looking for somebody with Virginia experience that can bring and hit the ground running here. Can you repeat the other parts of your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how would you work with the new city manager, the board members, and the residents?
Okay, absolutely. And, I love to go around to our city and talk to our city employees. I was really heartened when I saw the last meeting where you honored their service, and to see the number of years of service that our departments have. For instance, I saw at least 4 from fire and rescue that had 20 years or more experience. And you're just thinking somebody has made a commitment to our city. So I like talking to city employees. I like to see what they're doing, and what is the condition of their building, what's the equipment that they're working with. I like doing that. And so I think it's important. It's not just what happens in these 4 walls. It's what's happening in Parks and Rec, what's happening down at down at 9701 Manassas Drive now that they're down there. So, I mean, I like to do that. And I'm always open to citizen comment. And anybody that knows me knows I like to talk. So, and also, though, part of that is listening. And, and sometimes educating people about these are the boundaries of what we have, and these are the options that we can do. Somebody will say, well, why can't we do this? Well, there's a state law that prevents it, or we can't do that by the charter, or, there are different limitations that we have on the options that we have on some issues. So that's important. I think there's an education component to what the governing body does to a lot of our residents who may not be engrossed in this all the time.
Thank you.
If appointed, what is your top priority?
Well, you only have 10 months, so you can't change the world. But I think one of the things that will be important internally will be the relationship that we build with our new city manager and how he will manage the staff, because he's going to be different than our last city manager, and he's probably going to be different than our last, in terms of Keith being the interim manager. So there's a whole new dynamic. He's going to have to come in and learn about us. He's going to have to learn about our city. I don't know much about him. I want to know more about him because I think that, he's the full-time person and we are not. Most of us have day jobs or kids and different things like that. So we're not doing this 40, 50, 60 hours a week. We're doing this, 10, 20 hours a week maybe, with the conversations we have with our neighbors and, and around town. But, I think that's, in terms of, I'm realistic, this is 10 months. That's probably one of the most important things, is getting off to a good start with our new city manager and getting him into how we do things and learning from him about what his experiences are from different places that he's worked. And I can't wait to learn about him because you guys obviously really like him a lot. So I'm really interested to sit down with him and kind of pick his brain and find out what his experiences are and what he's bringing to Manassas Park. And I think that's important. I mean, I think that's a realistic goal for a 10-month appointment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Thank you for appearing and applying. The question I have, and you've heard me probably say this, Manassas Park has the highest tax rate of 95 counties, 38 cities across the Commonwealth. What would you do to try to get that rate down?
Well, I noticed in the alternative, the A1 budget that you just approved, that you do have frozen positions. So obviously you've taken some measures to control expenses from, in terms of the employees that you already have. I think that given the federal, I'm not even sure what word to use to describe what we're going through right now. It seems like it kind of changes by day about what funding we will have from the federal government, whether federal employees are going to be laid off or reassigned to new areas. We're going to have to be a little more conservative in this next budget because I think there's a lot of uncertainty that we don't know yet how it will affect us directly. Will there be, we haven't really had a recession. We always have that threat. If we have people that are laid off in the contracting world, people that leave federal service, there could be, reduced incomes, so there may be some people pulling back on purchases that may hurt us on sales tax revenue and meals tax revenue, which will fluctuate with the economy. But yeah, as I say, I own 2 properties in the city. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate. This year is the first year where the property tax will be over $10,000. I just paid the first half in January, which was just over $5,000. So I'm acutely aware of how much property tax there is to pay because I don't have a mortgage, so I have to cut 2 checks. I go up to the 3rd floor and I stand in line and I cut 2 checks and I hand them over. But I know that it takes people like me paying in so that our students can be educated, so that we can have a great fire department and a police department, and the public works department has enough money to do what they need to do, and we have a parks and rec system that our neighbors are still jealous of. They're, even Manassas being bigger is still trying to catch up to where we have been for quite a long time. We've had a Parks and Rec building for 15 years. We still have people that think they have to be a resident to be a member, where I feel like I'm still educating people about that. But, so we have some things that we're very proud of. But yeah, I think it's an issue, and I would have to look at, each of the subheadings of each of the budgets, because we can't price ourselves out of the regional market in terms of taxes, because, a lot of people, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So if appointed, how do you think this term would differ from the previous terms that you served on city council?
That's a good question. Well, the first time I was appointed was just for 1 year, so it's kind of similar. I just have about the same amount of time. I will say, we have more money this time. The last 2 times I've been on, we've been boxed in. When I came in 2017, 24% of our budget was debt service payments. So we were literally running the city on 3/4, and 1/4 was automatically being spent just to service the debt. And I know that number has come way down, so that allows us to do more things. So even though I have the same amount of time and a potential term, the situation is quite different. And I think that we didn't have the downtown, which is very different. We actually have things built here. We have there's a agreement for the movie theater, which I hope is successful. I want it to be successful because I want our city to be successful. We are all going to rise and fall together. So I think that we have a lot more things. We didn't have anything in the downtown, and that's a big game changer. We have just so many great Parks and Rec assets. We have so much more staffing in the fire department that we didn't have before. And in the post-COVID world, it's very different. It's very different in the city. It's very different in education. I was just reading in today's Washington Post that students haven't made up the difference with the post-COVID from being out of school. So we have needs and circumstances that are very different than when we came in 17. Our structure of our government is more sound, or we have a lot more reserves. So we're in a much better financial position. We have audits. I mean, we almost got oversight from the state the last time I was on. And, our city staff had to actually go to Richmond and present to them so that we wouldn't have that. Previous governing bodies have had to make some tough decisions so that it's better now. And even 2017, 18, 19, there were some years there that we struggled. But we're in a much, much better and stronger place now than we were before.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
It's me again.
Goes fast when you're just
It
5.
does. Okay, Mr. Shoemaker. Should Manassas Park continue to appoint its school board, or should we elect a school board? And if so, what are the pros and cons of each?
I feel like we've considered this question almost continuously, or
Oh, yeah.
it seems to cycle through. The benefit is that, I think that, candidates have to come like me and have to present their ideas, and they're not appealing to a group of people that may not have a lot of information. For instance, in Manassas, when you look at the voting results, there's a huge drop-off from, president, U.S. Senate. Once you get down to city council and then school board, you're losing, 20, 30, 40% of the voters who just leave a blank. And so that's an issue where you have a lot of people who aren't familiar with the local government, local cities, local school boards, people that don't have kids. They're like, I don't care about schools. I don't have any kids, I'm just not going to vote. So, so coming up for appointment sometimes can be good because you have people that, like yourselves, that can ask very detailed questions, and, they don't get away with saying certain things that people just, okay, well, that's what this person said, so it must be true. There's a check and a balance there in some ways. They run nonpartisan in Virginia, but obviously political parties endorse. So, they effectively become partisan because they got backing, they have money from each of the respective political parties. At least what you see in Manassas and Prince William, in the bigger jurisdictions. One of the benefits that we have here that I like to highlight is we never have to go through redistricting in the school side because we're one city. That takes a lot of pressure off. Prince William is going through another round of redistricting because they're always having to, we got to build another school, we need to build 2 schools, we need to build 3 schools. So then they're constantly redistricting, and there's a lot of animosity in the public when that happens because there's accusations that it's not fair or that there's people that are marginalized, and it's really sad to see that in the bigger jurisdictions where there are a lot of fights on schools and it's very divisive. So, I'm glad we don't have that level of division here. We're much more unified as a city, at least through our schools. And I don't know that electing versus appointment. Manassas does it differently. Manassas, they do it like we do in terms of part of the school board comes up, and then in 2 years, part of the school board comes up. But in Prince William, they all come up together. So you really could have just an entire board be or nearly replaced because they're all on the ballot together. That's one thing I would not suggest, would be to have the whole board come up together.
Thank you.
That's a good stopping point.
If budget cuts were necessary in order to achieve one of your budget goals, what would you be willing to cut and why?
Well, and I wrote this in my one of my question answers, that I will always prioritize people over things because people are much, much harder to replace. As you probably know firsthand, we have 3 people in the Public Works Department that are near retirement. They may have already retired at this point. But 4 years ago, they were already planning the succession planning because there was so much institutional knowledge in just a few people that if they were to retire or walk out the door, it would decimate certain departments or certain sections of departments where, they know the things, and you got to pass it on to the next person so they know the things. We don't have departments with 50 or 100 or 200 people in them. You have departments with, 5 or 10 and just a few people have so much experience in our city, but if they leave, they take a lot with them. So as I was on the board before, I always prioritize pay raises for employees. Because one of the years when I was on for some of the new people, we lost 5 police officers one year. I believe that was in 2018. At that point, they were $72,000 a piece to replace in terms of going to the academy, outfitting them with equipment, and bringing them on and doing the overtime to do the training. So one year, we had to spend $360,000, which was nearly 3 cents on the tax rate, just replacing employees that had left, who had 2, 3, 4 years. They took their experience, went somewhere else, got a huge raise, and we got left with a huge bill in order to replace them. And we had to put people on overtime to fill in while we were waiting for the new recruits to come through the academy. So, as I think to your question is I would look at, if you have to make adjustments in certain places, there are some places that look good on the face, but in the end, they cost a lot on the back end that you're not accounting for. And so, sometimes we can't be equal in pay to our local governments around us, but we can't be so large in the terms of the delta that we give them an incentive to leave, because turnover is a huge area where we can save money that's a huge savings, no matter whether we have a lot of money, some money, or no money, is turnover is a place where we can save money. And so having a stable city workforce can really give us savings multiple years out.
Thank you.
Okay, how do you plan to involve residents in decision-making process in our city?
We did some really good town halls and events for Route 28, starting in 2016. That was a really good process, and I was really proud of Manassas Park that we were able to host quite a few of the events. They also hosted them, I think, at the elementary school in Centerville. But I was really proud that we were able, I remember VDOT came in and they had huge boards and they were able to show us, like, here's an option and this is what it looks like. Here's another option and this is what it looks like. And it's interesting, and I bring that up, is that project's nearly dead. We spent years and years and years as a board approving resolutions, approving, sending our legislative goals to the General Assembly and to MVTA in order to get funding. To watch it now, all these years later, just basically fall apart, because, when you listen to the residents and they say 28's an issue, I think most people would still say 28's an issue, at least on the Prince William side. We know what the big issues are. It's real estate taxes, it's water and sewer, it's 28, it's parking. We know what the big issues are, generally. And, that's one of the things when I was on before, we were considering parking changes. I went to every cul-de-sac in the city one night. I did it at night. You don't go during the day when everybody's at work, because it sure doesn't look like a problem at 2:30 in the afternoon. But it sure might be a problem at 10:30 at night on a Thursday when everybody's home and you're trying to figure out, how do I park? And I don't have a garage, I don't have a driveway. There's only so many spots on my street. One of the advantages of me living in a townhouse is I understand parking quite a bit. We have 2 spots. And then we have La Paz, which is the overflow, in terms of, but we have people in the next neighborhood who park on La Paz and then they walk through the fence. So, so I'm always, looking at issues in different ways. I'm always looking at, what people are saying. And I see comments on Facebook. I follow it, to some degree, but you can't also let 20 of the loudest voices dictate the entire policy of the city. There has to be a balance, because just because I can get a keyboard and write that doesn't make that small group right, because there are other issues out there. I say parking, but there are a lot of other issues where you have to consider different perspectives. You have to consider, there are consequences and good things that come from a certain decision. And you have to kind of say, all right, we're trying to get to policies where there's at least no negative and people benefit. That's the best, is when you can get, nobody gets hurt and people do, find that the city's responsive, that we've solved the problem or made it better. Like, make parking on my street better, that make such and such better. And that's what I strive for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one last the question I have is, what type of economic development would you focus on?
Well, I think, given that the city's almost built out, is that we are going to be probably for the next 10, 20 years probably in looking at redevelopment, looking at commercial and industrial that we already have, and figuring out, this is how I would approach this. How do we wring more tax revenue out of a small piece of land? Do we get sales tax revenue, meals tax revenue, BPOL, personal property for business equipment, and property tax? How do you get more kind of flows of money from each piece of property? We have an aging shopping center on 28. What will that look like in 20 years? What will the area along 28 that has 28 frontage, will that always look the same way? Will it look different? How do we, maybe we have to assemble parcels into a bigger parcel in terms of getting a bigger business to come in, let's say. Like, we have to sometimes be strategic because, it's, sometimes it's hard to get financing, businesses get financing to redevelop properties. And you're trying to, get this business and, we had to do it here for City Center because we had to buy out the businesses along the old Park Center court. We had to assemble lots, and we had to make it so that the greater good from each of those individual lots. It's time consuming, it's not sexy, but it's so important because city councils from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now will be saying, oh, we're so glad that they did it this way. Or they'll say, I wish they'd have done it a different way because the way they did it isn't successful long term.
Thank you.
Do we have time for my question?
Yep, this is your second question, yeah.
Okay.
I'll be
so we
brief.
talked a bit
I'll be
about-
brief on the closing statement.
We talked a little bit about how Manassas Park has changed since your previous terms, but how have you changed? What skills and knowledge have you gained that will make this term, if appointed, different?
It's interesting. I think that I've gotten a little selfish in a good way where I've done some self-care. I've put myself first. I went back to school. That's a huge difference, where I've committed to a program and I'm looking at a career change probably in 25 or 26, which I've only had two full-time jobs since I've graduated high school. I'm a very small C conservative with my own job, with my own finances. I've always been single, and so I've always had to plan for my own personal self. And that's the funny part is my program is certified financial planning, is to ensure that people save enough money for retirement and save enough money to send their kids to school. I mean, if you've looked at the cost of college recently, it's just astronomical. I don't even know that I could go to my own university now in Virginia at the current cost. It's just, you look at it and it's like, wow. So, I say that in a positive way. I've been a little selfish. I've put myself first. I'm going through a program to educate myself and probably change jobs, which is different for me. So I've only, as I say, I had two jobs. So that's something different. And it's a good thing because when you're in a stronger position in yourself, then you can give more to others.
Thank you.
All right, would you like to give a closing statement?
I guess I'll be brief. Thank you for considering me. I know there are a lot of candidates for school board and for city council, and I, by accident, actually read through the essay questions, as I call them, from each of the candidates. I didn't change anything that I think because I read somebody else's, but it was interesting, just everybody's different take on this position. That I know who's in the pool, several, former school board member, former city council member, some other newer people. So I understand you have a lot of talent in this city that's gone untapped so far, but we're bringing people to the surface and having a strong civic life, and that's important. It's one of the reasons why I'm on the Committee 100, because we do nonpartisan civic events and panels and debates. I was the person to help put together the 2022 congressional debate right here in Manassas Park, because I will always showcase our city to people on the outside, and that's important because we are ambassadors for our city to the outside world to say, hey, look at us, look what we're doing, look at the great things that we have. Come here, spend your money. We want you to spend your money here, and come live here because we have something special. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much for applying. So there will be a public hearing on February 4th where we will list all the names of the people who interviewed and the public can make comment. And then our selection will be announced at our meeting on February 11th. Thank you for coming out.
All right, thank you so much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. And Rachel Kirklands, welcome.
One second, I'll just take myself.
Yes.
Yes, you do, thank you.
All right, while you get situated, I'll let Hasid make his statement.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm
I've heard you a
gonna-
couple times, but yeah.
I'm just going to excuse myself from the interviews. I'm not in favor of appointing somebody for an elected position, so I'm keeping it vacant for the special election, just for the democratic process, I believe in. So that's the reason I won't be asking questions.
Understood. Thank you for coming out tonight. We will begin with an opening statement. You can have up to 3 minutes. Lana will be keeping the time, and after that, we will take turns asking you questions, starting with Councilmember Cyberling. There will also be a 3-minute timer on that, and then we'll do a closing statement.
Fantastic. Okay. Good evening, members of the governing body, Ms. Mayor, city staff, and community members. My name is Rachel Kirkland, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding my application for the interim appointment to the Manassas Park City Council. For over 2 decades, Manassas Park has been my home, a community where I've raised my family, dedicated my career to education, and worked tirelessly to support our schools and residents. With 15 years of service on the Manassas Park City School Board, including multiple terms as chair and vice chair, I've developed a deep understanding of governance, fiscal responsibility, and community engagement. My experience overseeing budgets, setting strategic priorities, and ensuring accountability has prepared me to contribute meaningfully to the work of the City Council, particularly as we navigate a period of transition with the new city manager, new mayor, vice mayor, leadership team. After a career as a librarian and information professional with organizations as varied as the Congressional Research Service, the Urban Institute, George Mason University, and in the K-12 education space, both in the city of Manassas and now Manassas Park City Schools. I currently serve as the executive director, among other things, as of the Manassas Park Education Foundation. I work closely with local businesses, civic organizations, and residents to foster partnerships that benefit our schools and the greater community. I also serve as the tutoring specialist and the library content lead, further solidifying my commitment to supporting education and access to resources for all residents. Manassas Park is at a critical moment in its growth. We've made tremendous strides in strengthening our financial position, revitalizing our downtown, and investing in our schools and city services. However, we must continue building on this momentum with a clear vision, sound fiscal stewardship, and a deep commitment to open communication and transparency. If appointed, I will bring my experience, knowledge of city governance, and a passion for community engagement to serve the residents of Manassas Park with integrity and dedication. My goal is to help our city forward in a way that reflects the values and priorities of our residents while ensuring sustainable growth and responsible decision-making. I look forward to discussing how my experience and vision aligns with the needs of the governing body and the residents of Manassas Park. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's my very first question is, how do you think your school board and community experience uniquely positions you to serve on this board?
So, as we're all aware, I was on the school board for 15 years. I've seen many iterations of both the governing body and the school board and city and school staff, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I feel that all this experience taken in total, looking at a period of transition with a new city manager, positions me to contribute very positively to the changes, helping the board work together, being a part of this board, working together, and really getting things started off on a solid, positive tone. Not just for our new city manager, but the staff, the school division, and the community, the larger community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkland, and I appreciate all the service you've done to the school board. So the question I have for you is, I talk about taxes, and we have the highest tax rate, property tax rate of 95 counties, 38 cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia. What would you do to focus to try to bring that rate down?
So there are some serious challenges, obviously. So there's the tax rate, and then there's what people pay. Because even if we reduce the tax rate, the property values or the values of what our personal property is sometimes don't go down the way we want them to. Our residential property values go up. So it really is not more than just that tax rate. And we have some challenges. We don't have a whole lot of space to build out. We need to use what we have. Obviously, we need to expand the commercial tax base to reduce reliance on homeowners. An obvious way to do that is to attract more small business into the city. The mixed-use development that we have, apartments on top, storefronts on bottom, helps, but we need to diversify that, not just having retail point of sales. We need medical offices, we need professional services, we need consulting businesses that can come in and kind of really bring in that diversified tax base. We also need to look at our existing commercial zones. And are we getting the biggest bang for the buck? Should we be looking, what does revitalization on Euclid look like? Also, how are we leveraging that, being on that VRE corridor for our economic growth? I think there might be some serious potential as they expand to, weekend service, as we build out the city center development, okay?
Yeah.
All of that. And then public-private partnerships. I was looking in, preparing for this, thinking about what other jurisdictions have that we don't. We don't have an HMI. Historic Manassas does more than just put on events. They work with businesses to help offset the cost of advertising. They're able to leverage their nonprofit status to not support business activity more than just a calendar of events or a focus on historical relevance. I think we could really benefit from looking at possibly getting something similar going here in the park, and then maximizing those non-traditional revenue streams like grant funding. Will be hard to come by given the new administration, but those opportunities are there and we need to take advantage of them. I think lastly, we could leverage that economic growth that we're planning on to reduce taxes over time. And I think that's going to take some really, I know Laszlo had a vision when he was here, and we're getting a new city manager in, so we need to really work with him on those priorities and see what his vision is, what his experience is, and see what he can bring to the table.
Thank you.
Sure.
If appointed, what is your top priority?
My top priority really is this transition period for the next 10 months. I've offered myself in service because I am coming with experience. I'm not experienced. You have other candidates who have been on this board, but I have experience being on the school board. I'm going to be able to hit the ground running over the next 10 months more than somebody who's coming to kind of this scale of service brand new. My priority is that kind of 360 positivity, setting the right tone, the transparency that people are looking to see. I think change is really difficult for people. We have a new mayor, we have a new vice mayor. They did things, Jeanette did things a certain way. You did things a certain way as vice mayor. People are going to want to see some continuity in the level of transparency, in the way that, things were discussed on the online forums, or I think there's a real opportunity to really build capacity for positive, transparent interactions, and to really look at how we've done things in the past and how we want to move forward in the future. And even though 10 months is a really short window, I think I can contribute a lot to developing and sustaining a collaborative work environment with both the board and the city staff.
Thank you.
What updates would you like to see made to our comprehensive plan?
Oh, comprehensive plan. Let's see, I had this written down too. So, comprehensive plan. Oh, why is that not? I'm blanking on that one. Oh my gosh. I think for the comprehensive plan, we don't have a strategic plan. The comprehensive plan exists, and it's been there for a long time. It hasn't been touched in many years. I know, I'm sorry, there were 9 questions and I wrote 17 pages, so my apologies. It hasn't been touched in many years. What are our priorities? Do they reflect them? I believe that the document is so aged at this point that we need a full revision to go through that strategic plan process, to have conversations, to have goals for ourselves as a city, for our tax base, for businesses that reflect the here and now. And yes, things are changing very rapidly in this country in this moment, but still, so much was built up around the debt service. I mean, everything for the longest time related to that debt service, and now I remember thinking about 2032 like it was a very far time away, and now we're almost there. So we need to be talking about more than the debt service. We need to see what's next in terms of how the city is going to sustain itself moving forward and what that's going to look like. Sorry, thank you for the moment.
Thank you.
Rachel, good to see you here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for applying. We just completed a general election in which only 4 individuals ran for seats here on the governing body. 3 were incumbents and 1 was new to the process. If you are interested in serving on the governing body, please tell me why you didn't apply and run for the seat. Also, the second part of this question is, if appointed, do you plan to run in November?
Okay. So first part of the question is, I had never had any plan to run for city council. That was just not something on my immediate radar. I just finished serving 15 years on the school board. You know, I've changed jobs. I always thought city council might be something I would do in the future. I am offering myself in service right now, in this moment, to see if I can contribute something to this group. It was not on my radar. It was not a priority for me. I want to help in any way I can, but running for public office was not the absolute priority. So there's no reason other than the fact that it was just something I wasn't planning on doing. For the Democrats, Yessie and Stacy had it covered, and Stacy has worked very hard to get here. That said, I also know that this issue of whether or not I intend on running, my focus is coming in here and doing the work. It's not a long period of time, but I can't envision, basically if you're taking this and you commit to running, you're not just running this year, but you're running another year after that. It costs money to run, and I have no problem doing that. But honestly, I want to prioritize the work and learning the job and seeing if this is something that I really, would like to do. I wrote in my answers that I retire in 7 years and I plan on going back to the school board. I loved my service on the school board. I loved the time on the school board. If you served with me, you know that is as the truth. I could do this and fall in love with this. But my priority is making myself available in this moment of need to do this work. I know I said I wouldn't run, and I don't have no intention on doing it. But if you guys looked at me in May and said, there's nobody else stepping up, I'd be hard-pressed not to try to step back in for you. Because I want to serve this community. It was just like, I don't know if you guys recall when I was coming off the school board, nobody had put in. It was like the Friday before the Monday deadline, nobody put in, and Jeanette had called and asked, if nobody puts in, will you stay a little bit longer until we can get someone there? And I said, yes, of course, because that's just who I am. And, I have no intention of running in November, but if May comes and, there's nobody else running, or if there's another vacancy, I'm going to put myself forward. Yes, of course, I will come and help. it's up to you whether or not I'm a good fit for this, but that's the mentality that I'm bringing to it.
Thank you.
Okay, Rachel, my turn. How would you balance preserving the city's character with the need for new development and modernization?
Oh, that is really, that is an extremely tough question. I think for a long time we thought about the city as like the west side, the east side. And somehow there's more value of one than the other. I love the west side of the city and the distinctive nature of the architecture, the Cape Cods, the closeness, the physical closeness of the houses and the people who live over there. I think we have to, you would hate to see something like that become what's happened in Arlington, where they, come in, buy the property, tear it down, and then build a bigger house. I think every part, every inch of this city has its own place and its own reason for being. And I think we have some opportunities to build character in our downtown. I'm sure people don't think of new construction as a real opportunity when you've built an entire new downtown. But the character of community, of coming together, of having spaces, a sports bar where you can go watch a game, a movie theater, which was like my favorite question that you guys asked in that, to have people who love film get together. What we have been able to do with the little splash pad in the common area for the holidays, I think character is an evolving process, and I think we need to, and again, that goes back to what, HMI, a group like HMI could offer. It could really go to work to enhance what exists and help vision what comes next.
Thank you.
The question I have is, what type of economic development would you focus on?
Okay, so obviously space is a problem. We have some existing spaces, retail spaces, so small business would obviously be a top priority. I think the mixed-use model that we've used in the downtown, I was trying to read up on the item that you voted for last night, if there's a mixed-use component there. I think, as we look at those condos 2-over-2s, I think any time that we can kind of do mixed use, we need as much commercial footprint as we can get, and we just don't have the space to do a whole lot with it. But beyond that, retail dining and retail dining, but business incubators, even though we're starting to pivot away a little bit from remote work, I think shared space still has a place. I think we don't have enough medical and health and wellness businesses in our community, and that's something that we could definitely, definitely invest some time in bringing those people in. And I also think there should be a priority in this kind of pedestrian-friendly downtown, because I think, going back to Stacy's character, it adds a lot of character to the community.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, what three steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
I think first one, and we have to look at, people always have to be the priority, but going back to something that we talked about when I was on the board, seeing if there's possibilities for economies of scale. One of the things that the school system and the city didn't have the best relationship, and I think it kept a lot of things from really being looked at fully. We talked about, shared facilities, shared services like human resources or public works, or how we could kind of consolidate, putting things on contracts. Certainly we did with our custodial services. Anywhere we can achieve some economies of scale there. obviously an idea, a common idea is shared services. But I think as we've seen with the library, that doesn't necessarily always work in your favor with the bigger jurisdictions. But also, I think achieving some efficient, we have to make an investment in infrastructure, but I think anywhere we can achieve some efficiencies, both in the work itself and then long-term using sustainable energy, I think will be a great way to also, save some money. And then, people over things. I think really taking a hard look at what we put in the budget, again, going to like the comprehensive planning and all of that, seeing where we can trim in terms of things and not people, and share resources with neighboring jurisdictions or with the school system itself.
Thank you.
In your responses in a few different places, you mentioned World Cafe. Can you tell me what that is?
Yay!
What that looks like?
Okay, a question that's not giving me a heart attack. So the World Cafe model is, so we're all familiar with the town hall model, where people come in and they talk about their concerns or ideas, but what often happens is it's the biggest, it's the loudest voice in the room. And it can kind of go off in tangents. The World Cafe model brings people together and stimulates conversation and solicits ideas, but does so by really focusing and framing the questions being asked. So you're kind of sitting there with at a table with maybe a facilitator and a group, and you have a question that relates to the topic. Like we did it when we were talking about balanced calendar. We were talking about the things that we thought could really be beneficial, and then the things that would really be challenges, and the things that we would like to see come from this in terms of what do we want to get from the educational experience for our kids by moving to this balanced calendar. We had something called intersessions at the time, and what was that going to look like? So instead of just kind of opening it up and having a free-for-all where everyone's talking about their ideas but not really being kind of driven, or not everyone's engaging in it, by sitting around a table with a facilitator, you're able to kind of collect this data, then you put the all of it together, see the recurring themes, and you draw that out, and you develop your priorities there.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Should Manassas Park continue to appoint its school board, or should we elect our school board members? And what do you see as the pro and cons to both? And where do you come down?
So I have a lot of ideas on this, as you might imagine. In my 15 years of appointments, that means I went up 5 times. Only twice did I have someone go up against me in terms of my application. The first time I applied, and then my very last application. The first time there were 3 people in the poll. The last time there was me and one other person. The rest of the time, the other 3 times, I went and nobody put their hat in. We are a small community. It's hard to engage people in service. There's, running a campaign can be very daunting for people. Even thinking about this whole, running, I ran the numbers, like if it really came down to it, could I pull together a campaign if I had to in 10 months? And I work with some deficits. I have some physical limitations related to disability, so I would not be as comfortable dropping lit, but I could do mailings. A mailing, bare bones, is about $900 a go. Signs, bare bones, I was running numbers, you might have, your mileage may vary. $900 go, signs, 100 signs, maybe $800. So all the way you're up to $300. That's before you do any other literature that could get dropped, and just ancillary expenses. You can think of it. I think the financial aspect probably precludes people and does make it a little daunting. Campaign finance rules are also very strict. It's very easy to forget to file that last report and find yourself with a huge fine. So I think by keeping it appointed, and it's not appropriate everywhere. If you're in a large jurisdiction where there's geographical representation, absolutely, it should be an elected board. We are very small, and I think an appointed school board serves us very well. I know there's the whole question of whether or not whether or not the people's voice is heard in the process, but you guys are elected by the people. It's just another form of work that you do. You are the people that are selecting the school board based on your feedback and the information that you've gathered from your constituents. So I believe that one very strongly. The other thing is I find it can be very toxic, especially in smaller school divisions, and it can actually be a very negative thing for, and I'm speaking from my experience in Manassas, having an elected school board over there proved to be very toxic and sometimes a problem for teacher retention, I'll be quite honest. So.
Thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Would you like to give a closing statement?
Sure. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to come out this evening and for your thoughtful consideration of my application. Manassas Park is more than just where I live. It is where I've built with my life, invested in schools, in our schools, and worked to strengthen our community. I've spent years fostering partnerships, engaging in policy work, and advocating for strategic growth that benefits all residents. I know that governing is not about any one individual. It is about working together, listening to the people that we serve, and making informed decisions that balance fiscal responsibility with the needs of our community. If appointed, I will bring a collaborative, service-oriented approach to the council, ensuring that we remain forward-thinking, transparent, and committed to the long-term success of Manassas Park. I will work diligently to support our new city leadership, strengthen community engagement, and uphold the trust that the residents place in their elected officials. Whether in this role or another in the future, my dedication to Manassas Park remains steadfast. I look forward to continuing to serve you in the city in whatever capacity I can. I mean that truly. I want to see you get the right person for this moment. I think it's crucial. I think, you have a lot to do with the board. As a board, the climate we live in, I think it's very crucial to have that 7th spot filled so you can function. So I want you to get the right person, and if it's not me, that's fine. And if it is me, I would be deeply, deeply honored. I'd like to thank my husband for his support this evening and coming out. Also, one Jacob Kirkland, his support, and of course my colleagues in Manassas Park City Schools. They have been very, very supportive as I've expressed my interest in this. So thank you so much. If you have any additional questions of me, please don't hesitate to ask, and I look forward to talking to you guys more. And I did have something to share with you before I leave. I have mentioned several of you over the years of a leadership cohort, and I am actively working on it. I have some slides I'm going to leave with you. They're unrelated to this process, but I just, especially Alana and Stacy, I would love your feedback on it because it's something I'm trying to get going for the next school year.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for applying. Thank you for coming out. There will be a public hearing on February 4th. Next Tuesday, where we'll list all the names of the people we interviewed and the public may comment, and our selection will be announced on February 11th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
6.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thanks so much. Yes.
Thank you.
as well.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Well, sorry for the colossal brain part about the comprehensive plan. We know I wrote extensively about
I
that.
know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, yeah, and just give me your feedback on it would be great.
Okay. And next, we have Marie Shivik, and she is here for the school board position.
No, it's not so bad. It would not be so bad, but it's a good job. Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Marie. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're going to begin with the opening statement, and after that, we will be going down the board asking questions. For everything, Ms. Connor will be keeping time, 3 minutes for opening statement and for question and responses.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize I had to have an opening and closing statement.
Oh, that's okay, even if it's just you saying, hi, my name is Marie, and lived here for X amount of years, and
Okay.
whatever.
Well, my name is Maria Shivak. I have lived here for just over 27 years. I came in, I am an immigrant. I was born in the UK. My parents are Polish. We immigrated to Canada and then to here. And then from Ohio to Pennsylvania. And it's interesting, even though they're all English-speaking cultures, there's a huge difference between Canada and America. Yes. And it's always, and I really noticed the educational systems between Ohio and Pennsylvania. Ohio is much better than Pennsylvania. But anyway, and it was very interesting when I came down here, because I was amazed this area attracts, because the business here is government. So many people all over the world and all over the country come here. So to me, it's very diverse, a lot of mix of cultures and everything. And was interesting sometimes learning how to manage that. And also, I think my experience as an immigrant and learning the school systems, and also my experience being, I'm a retired federal employee, and I understand how the government works and how you can get jobs there. So maybe I can help the kids manage that both on the contractor and on the government side. Because it's not that hard. You just need to know some tricks, and you need to, give the kids a little practice, and then they can go in there, and they're really great career paths. That's it, because anymore I'll probably go off tangent.
Thank you. We'll start with questions. Councilmember Javed?
Good evening. Thank you for coming in tonight. Because one of my first question is, the budget process is very, demanding which departments to prioritize. And with that said, what's your thoughts on funding extracurricular activities versus academic, or funding academic resources for students? So which one were you?
I'm a little bit more on the academic side, because to me, reading, writing, and arithmetic are so basic to you're growing up as an adult and being able to function as an adult. Absolutely nothing wrong with extracurricular, but I understand there are budgetary considerations. And I know when I grew up, I had arts, I had the band. We had that, and we also had, when I started, we had track. Getting girls track at my school was a really big thing. And we let everybody in. We didn't have cutoffs and everything, so it was quite fun. I think you have to really take a hard look at your budgets and balance that and what the kids like to do versus what the school can afford.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Maria. I'm glad you applied and put your application in for the school board. My first question, which has gotten away from me, here it is. Should Manassas Park continue to appoint its school board, or should we elect our school board? And what do you see as the pros and cons of each of those, and which one do you support?
Well, I very much am for an appointed one.
Okay.
Because I don't think I've never done an election, I would not know how to do it. It might be a little bit outside of my comfort box too, so I don't know if I could do that. But also, I don't think Manassas Park is large enough. it is, as it is, we only had, 2 people volunteer for this position. And it's hard to get people to volunteer to do things. They complain on the Facebook pages a lot, but trying to get them to come out and actually do something and to help, they'll criticize everything you do, but they won't come out and help. So I think at this point in the city's growth, you have to keep it appointments.
Thank you.
Have you served on any boards or committees before? And if so, what were your responsibilities and what did you learn from that experience?
Could you just repeat the beginning of that again?
Sure. Have you served on any boards or committees before?
Yes, I am currently on the CMWG, the Community Maintenance Working Group, and we are also part of Keep the Park Beautiful. So, and I think we grew that. I came in as, we just started the group and we grew it, and it was really a good experience because I learned just to watch people create events and do project management. And I did a lot of research, and we came in and we grew paths. That's how we got the Keep the Park Beautiful. What would you call it? That's how we went that path. Mm-hmm. But I'm also on the HOA board. I'm the vice president right now. So no authority, but that's also really interesting because there's so much work to do for the community and to help it. And doing the budget, can we do it? And it's interesting working with the city because it's so convoluted, who's responsible for what. And it's interesting how we work together. So, like I said, I've been having fun doing it. So that's basically been my experience as far as that goes.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Maria. How can a school board know if its goals are being accomplished and its policies are being implemented?
And what was that last? And the policies being implemented?
Yeah.
That is a really good question, because I feel right now there's not enough transparency between the populace and the school board. The only thing I know is when parents tell me things. So I really don't know what's going on. I think they really, really need to work on their communication and PR, and if they do collect surveys or metrics, they need to let the people know what's going on and what's working and what's not going on. Because I feel like there's a wall between us, between the people that live here and between the school board. Thank you.
Hey Maria, how you doing? Thank you for applying. The question I have is sometimes certain students may struggle in a certain subject, math or reading. What type of strategies or programs would you implement to assist to get those students to perform at a better rate, or to assist them to get them up to par?
And again, I have to go to my own experience, because I know when I was going through school, we really didn't have these where the teachers gave us the special plans, and we had all this access to all this extra help. It was basically mom and dad said, go do your homework. That's my experience. So I really, and I hate to say I really don't know, but I don't know. I don't know, except can you pay attention to the child and make sure he's getting help? Because the only experience I've had with it is we had a program at work where we went out to we picked an elementary school that we helped. And we had one afternoon during the week, a whole bunch of us volunteered for it, and we went there. They picked a child for us to help. And I just remember going in there. I had a little kindergarten kid from El Salvador, and he barely spoke English. And his teacher said to me, we're trying to teach him his adjectives. And she would give me like these little games and blocks and tell me how to do it with him. And that's what I did. And sometimes I felt I wasn't helping. But I asked her at the end of the year, I said, was me coming in and interacting him even for like 1 hour a week helpful? And she said yes. So I really liked having that feedback and that metric. And I don't know what else. That's been my experience. That's all I can tell you.
Thank you.
So just a quick background question. Do you have students in the school system?
Oh,
currently?
no, single. I have fur babies.
Okay.
I don't have children, but in my family, education was really, really, really important. It was, because from being from Europe, they're a bit of snob. They can be intellectual snobs over there, to be really honest. There is a real difference between going to college and university. My one uncle gave my dad heck because he went to a college and not a university. But the one thing about education that my family grew up in, it was so important because that's how you advanced yourself, and that's how, in life, that's how you provided for your family. And even when we lost everything and we got deported, because my dad was an engineer, my uncles were engineers, they were doctors and bankers, they could, when they resettled, it took a while, they had to, but they could integrate and they could get jobs in their fields. So, okay, and I'm starting to lose, but like I said, to me, that's my background, and so I'm very passionate about learning, and you shouldn't stop learning from when you're a child to an adult.
Thank you. Do you watch the school board meetings or attend them?
No.
Okay.
I
Thank
don't
you.
even know who they are.
Thank you.
Like I said, yeah.
Councilmember Javed?
My second question, not every decision is an easy one. Sometimes you'll be faced with criticism from the public. So how would you handle backlash and stand by your decision, even though the community does not? And how would you include them in the decision-making process?
Wow, that's a good question.
Okay.
That's a nasty question. I know, I think sometimes you have to, as the board, when you have your discussions about what problems are, you have to sit down and be very logical and find what all the paths are, and then find the one you think that best fits your case, and then stick by it. And if there's an issue, you can always go, if the public doesn't like what you said, and there's issues about it, you said, this is what we did. We looked at that, these were the alternatives, and this was the best case scenario for us to go forward. And if you have any suggestions to offer to the board, better suggestions, please give them to us and help us move forward. Because that way, again, I'm sorry, I have found people complain a lot, and they will rip apart your project, but they will not offer helpful suggestions for you to move forward and to make it a better situation.
No, thank you. Excellent.
Okay. The city for the last 4 years has been raising the progressive pride flag at all of its city flagpoles, in support of its LGBTQ community. Do you favor the school division doing the same at its school sites, particularly the high school?
I personally, I know it sounds a little bit old-fashioned, I think school is for learning, and a child's job is to be a student and to learn and to grow, to gain skills, life skills, so they can become an adult. I do not think school is the place to bring in too much ideology, and you have to be very firm about that. However, I don't think there should be any problem nowadays. You have people who are straight, you have straight and homosexual people, I'm sorry if I'm not using the terms correctly, but by LGBTQ, there's no problem with respecting it, but I do not think they should control the school or tell the school how to, in their past, because they're students. I don't care what your sexuality is, you are a student first. Your job is to learn. And we're there to make you the best possible person, regardless of what your sexual orientation is.
Thank you.
How would you ensure productive relationships with other school board members, the superintendent, and the community?
Listen to everybody, don't have arguments with them, because everyone's got their own point of view. And sometimes you have to really dive deep and understand where the other person's coming from and all the options that they're thinking are necessary. because I know sometimes, like on the HOA board, we have to rein people in, because I know a lot of times when we try to recruit new members, the first thing anybody wants to say is, I'm here to change everything. No, you're not. You're here to find out what the process is, and then try to make it better. Because you can't have one person going rogue, because that's when you have all these really bad people on TikTok, and it makes the HOA look bad. But anyway, and it's the same thing with the school board. You don't want to go there.
Okay, thank you.
What do you believe this is the greatest reward about school board service?
For me, it's a chance to give back to the community. I hope I'm a fresh perspective, because I'm coming in from the outside, because I did read the biops of the other people, and a lot of the other board members have a lot of educational background, and I'm coming in with a fresh set of eyes. And that's the way I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it from, I'm hoping we can create something to help the kids so they're ready to take jobs and take the next step. This area is such a great opportunity to better yourself and to make a better future for yourself. And that's why I came here. I mean, that's why everyone comes here. And I think that's our job, is to help these kids. And it's regardless if it's in like a vocational type of school, or it's a tech or health, it's give them the extra steps so they can make really smart choices and make smart decisions on where their careers are. And also, if you teach them how to learn, there's nothing wrong with changing your career. Because that's one thing I found when I went to high school. It's almost like in 9th grade, if you didn't make your choice, I was going to be a nurse or a doctor or whatever, they yelled at you. And I go, you can always change your path. And I just want to make sure the kids have the tools, that toolbox, that they know that they can do that. And the other thing, I'm a really strong proponent of, teach their kids their finances. Because I think nowadays with credit cards and that, kids are there's too many people who don't know what their finances or how they work. And I want the kids, when they leave here, they know how to handle that, and they know how to take care of that.
Thank you.
Actually, you've answered some of my stuff between those questions. I don't have another question, but thank you.
Okay. How do you see your role in ensuring that the policies created by the board are diverse, equitable, and inclusive in the Manassas Park community?
All I can say is on that, because we're getting really a lot of conflicting issues from our upper management in the White House, and I don't know if that comes to and affects the school board as far as DEI policy. I just think you should treat everybody like a human being and be fair to them. That's all I can say about that. I mean, you need to be fair across the board. And you need to listen to where the kids are coming from. You need to listen to what's really going on, and you need to have a little common sense about how things are, how you handle the situations, I think. I don't know if that's the best answer, what you were looking for, but I hope.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to give a closing statement?
Well, thank you for letting me come here and listen to me, and thank you for not laughing at any of my answers. But the reason I was doing this is because I really wanted to be that common sense person that's on the board, and maybe hopefully through my point of view, I can add some fresh ideas or viewpoints. Because the way I look at it is, this is a really great opportunity. I do believe the kids are the future, and the kids are the future, but you have to train them. You have to prepare them. I think some of these kids, they're so sucked into social media. Sometimes when I talk to some kids, I feel like I'm not connecting, they're not there. And I think this is an opportunity to do that. And I think we really should treat them as young adults, And again, my big thing, I think, for me is teach them how to handle themselves in real life, how to handle their finances, and how to live as an adult, because it's tough in this area. I think all of us can say, when I moved down here, I'm like, holy crap, that's how much rent is? Yeah. I mean, I can't afford it. I can't afford to pay that off and my car loan and my student loan. And I want the kids here to be prepared so they're really much aware of what's going on and how and make smart choices in life. And I think I'm like a fresh perspective, and I hope I can bring that to the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
applying for this position. We appreciate you stepping up to fill the role. There will be a public hearing on February 4th where we will list all the names of the people we interviewed, and the public can make comments on those selections. And our selection will be announced at our meeting on February 11th.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for giving me the opportunity, and either way, thank you for letting me do this. It was fun.
Good. Thank you so
I'm
much.
also on their Board of Equalization, she forgot.
Right, you are.
Yes,
You are.
very
Yeah,
important.
Oh, yeah, I did forget that. But it only meets twice a year, so.
I know,
But
but
it
it's
still
very
counts.
important.
Still on the board.
Okay, next is Mr. Maldonado.
I saw him.
Saw him.
I did too.
Yeah.
Oh, he's here?
He was here. Do you have his contact to text or call?
Probably 3 minutes.
He does have 3 minutes. My concern is that he tried to go into the offices and then he
He's lost in there?
I-
Trapped?
I don't think he's trapped, but
So they put a fight on
Why don't you use the restroom then if you're not here?
yeah, sure. Good, how are
Good,
you?
good.
No, they're 15.
Yes.
May, I don't know when they're gonna. Need to work this summer.
Where did he take? He took a break?
He went to the restroom,
Okay.
but like I say, welcome. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Councilmember Javed is abstaining from asking questions in order to preserve the democratic process. He doesn't want to appoint a member, so he's abstaining, but he'll sit and listen. We'll begin with the opening statement. You can have 3 minutes. Ms. Connor will be keeping the time, and then we will go down the line asking questions. Also, 3-minute timer from Ms. Connor, and then we'll do a closing statement.
Okay, sure.
I gave your announcement.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, he knows I
And
talked to
both
Yes, yes, we
candidates are
spoke.
here, so you both
Yes.
know. Okay.
So good evening, everybody. Everybody's doing well today, I hope. So my name is Robert Maldonado. I am a resident of Manassas Park. I'm just going to tell you why I'm interested in this position. So for the last 30 years, I've been a person of service. Military for 10 years. I worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years. I've been a volunteer for CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, for the last 15 years. I belong to an African-American fraternity, which is called Iota Phi Theta, which is basically about service and civil action. So coming down here 33 years ago, it was nonstop for me. I used to do it in New York, but here is just, you can see the value of your work here much quicker. The residents here are phenomenal, and Manassas Park is a place that, when we first moved down here, I wanted to move down here. The diversity is incredible, and right now the potential is phenomenal. Being part of the new town center as a resident, I'm excited to see what the future comes. And I want to be part of it. I also want to be one to push for it. I think that this city is going to be better than anything around it, whether it's Old Town Manassas, Prince William. We're going to be the gateway to those places. So they're going to have to stop here first. And as I talk to a lot of my neighbors, they're concerned with a lot of things, from housing, a lot of the things with the separation of which side of the tracks you live in, things of that nature. The facilities like the parks. Housing is the biggest thing right now, right? Housing and the school system, where we have a high level of absenteeism. So those are a lot of things that concern them and concern myself. I'm a dad, so my son is out of the public school system now. He's at GMU, but it doesn't keep me away from being concerned for my fellow neighbors and residents. So hopefully, I'll be able to convince you that I'm the man for the job. If not, that doesn't mean that it'll stop me from volunteering and helping. So regardless, I'm here to stay and open to any questions.
Great, thank you so much. We'll start with Councilmember Cyberling.
Good evening, Mr. Maldonado.
Good evening.
You have a diverse background, diverse set of experiences, skill sets, achievements. How do you think those will benefit if you get appointed on the City Council?
Oh, wow. So let's start from the kids and go to the adults. Martial arts instructor for over 15 years, and I am a middle school teacher. So conflict, education, mentoring, coaching comes natural to me. But also helping my fellow teachers deal with diversity, which is one of the big keys in Manassas Park, one of the most diverse areas in this section. The things that I think that my whole life has been about troubleshooting, whether it's technical or the human factor. And knowing that everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but people think A and B, there's a this and that. I don't believe in that. There's this and that and another thing. We have to learn how to work to get to the middle, all right? Your idea might not connect with my idea, but there are a couple of ideas that we can agree to. So let's use that as a platform to move up. So I would think that my experience of bridge building is second to none when it comes to dealing with conflict, or not even conflict, just getting things done.
Thank you.
Mr. Maldonado, how you doing today?
Good, yourself, sir?
Very good. It's a very impressive resume, a lot of technology experience. I remember Novell. I used to work on that, so I started. Question I have for you is, and that's this question to everybody, we have the highest tax rate of all 95 counties, 38 cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it's a working class community, places a lot of hardship. What would you do to focus and try to bring that tax rate down?
Well, right now, I think that you all are doing the right thing. We have to increase the revenue in our area. The center is going to be the cornerstone of that. We have a theater coming in, right? We have the old theater in Manassas that's closed down. We have the other theater by 66 that's closed down, right? We have Centerville, which is far off from here. It's going to be a centerpiece where a lot of people are going to come in to have that entertainment value. And as we start building these other facilities, like we have La Finca coming, we have Girani's 2, we have the Little Boat, and all these other ones coming, this is going to be a place where people want to hang out. And you want to have a place where it's going to be safe and it's not overwhelming. And the beautiful thing about the plan that you have implemented is that we still have the small town feeling. And I think that's what people thrive for. That's where they want to put their families in. They want a place where they can feel safe and enjoy their time when they have it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If appointed, what would be your top priority?
I have 3. Housing is 1. I have the parks is 2. All right? And then creating revenue using the green space that we have. One of the things that I believe that we can do is use the Alt Golf Center, keeping the green space, but make it a venue, add things to it, like maybe zip line, organic gardening, things that the community can be involved in without destroying it, not developing on it, but just enhancing the experience of our residents there.
Thank you.
That was my question. So maybe you could elaborate. I was going to say, can you talk about your vision for our existing parks and green spaces?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe even beyond what you just mentioned.
Well, one of the things, one of the proposals that I would bring up is that we can have advertising, just like Little Leagues have, where they have the posters up from different companies, and have those companies, for that advertisement, maintain the fields year-round. It doesn't have to be one, it could be multiple companies. But for that space where during the summer, you have soccer games and baseball games and softball games and flag football or what have you, they'll get that free advertising for at least to maintain the fields. Therefore, we're not paying for advertising, they're paying for everything. But at the same time, they're getting the exposure at a cheaper rate than if they would put up a billboard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Maldonado, thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. My question, we just completed a general election in which only 4 individuals ran for seats on the governing body. 3 were incumbents and 1 was new to the process. If you are interested in serving on the governing body, please tell me why you didn't apply and run for the office. And if appointed, do you plan to run in November?
I plan to run in November if I'm appointed. My focus at that time was my wife, who is running, if you don't know, state delegate, but also to support those that were running. I've toggled back and forth as far as getting involved with politics because my wife is already involved in politics. But, when you get that urge that you really want to do good and it just can't stop you, that's why I kept pushing for it. And I decided to do it. I think that one of the questions that you all had, which is very interesting, is about the diversity. One of the hardest things to do is be a public servant. And a lot of people know that. That's why a lot of people don't run. Okay? It's nonstop work, little pay, little credit. Easy to blame, but you get little credit. And I admire that, and I want to be part of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Back in me. What programs or initiatives would you support to celebrate the cultural diversity of Manassas Park community that foster a stronger sense of community?
Well, I think first thing, we're doing a great job with a couple of beautiful fairs that we had last year, the Latin Festival and so forth. But what I really would love is for us to be able to communicate that more, because I think it should be totally packed. I mean, when I mean packed, it's if you go in to see a concert, you see wall to wall, we should have everybody involved. And I think that one of the things that I really would like to see is how better to communicate with our community, all right? How better to get them engaged and understand that this is not just a place to live, but to participate, to be engaged.
Thank you.
The question I have is, what type of economic development would you focus on?
Right now, the center is the most important part right now, I believe. We need to get those spaces filled reasonably. We don't want to just put anybody in there. So one thing that I'm hoping is that we never see a McDonald's or Popeyes or anything, that it should be a small business. All right, it gives it more value when you do that. And I think that the type of businesses that we bring in should be diverse, right? So we have the Peruvian Coffee House coming in. We have the Little Boat. That is excellent, and we have to really think about our population and what would bring them to the center. Right? Soul Food Place would be awesome, just to let you know, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, if you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why?
What would I change in the zoning code? All right. Probably a little bit controversial. I think that we have to figure out the parking situation around these houses on the other side. where you have multiple vehicles blocking areas. And you have commercial trucks blocking residents from parking there. I think that we need to help them out, right? So if you have a commercial truck, you should not be parked in a resident, you should be parked somewhere else, right? Because I think space is so limited on that side. And I have a lot of, like I said before, I used to be a martial arts instructor, so I have a lot of my parents that live on that side. That's one of the things they always complain. You know, you have a tow truck or construction truck, and then they have other houses. So we have to figure out a way that we can work with both sides on that.
Thank you. What updates would you like to see made to our comprehensive plan?
I really want to work on the education side. I think that, I know that we have environmental, parks and rec in part of the mission plan, but I think that the Manassas Park High School has one of the highest absentee rates in a while, right? And I think that one of the reasons is because we have a lot of Central American people that are working. These kids are working, all right? And if we were to have a CTE program and give them the value of something that they can take back to their parents' businesses, then the absenteeism, I think, will lower down. That's one thing. The other thing, a lot of these kids, a lot of parents, not kids, a lot of parents cannot afford college. We need to give them different tools and different avenues to bring in income to their families. All right? So I know other counties have good CTE programs, but I think that we can probably have the best if we put in the funds in behind it.
Thank you.
Should Manassas Park continue to appoint its school board, or should we be electing our school board members? And what do you see as the pro and cons on both sides, and which one do you support?
Well, I think that you're kind of in a conundrum, because the problem is this: a lot of people don't want to run for school board, right? If the last couple of years, there's been a lot of harassment towards the school board. Now you have certain people that will come up and they would run for it. That's fine. But the question is, do you have enough people that can run for that position and then get elected? Or does it have to be appointed? So I think that school board, it probably is one of the hardest positions to probably fill. And thinking about what's happening with the federal government is probably going to be more difficult regarding federal funding and so forth. So I would love for it to be elected, but in order for it to be elected, you have to have enough people to run. I don't think it makes sense if only one person is running and they run unopposed. Then it's a waste of money for the city, right? Because they're going to be people are going to be funding that person, they're going to be wasting their money for advertising, and they're by themselves. So I'd rather it be appointed until we have enough people in the pool for them to run for office.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Would you like to make a closing statement?
Sure. I'm excited about what you all have accomplished right now. As a resident, but just as a person, the environment that you are creating, that you're building, is phenomenal. I always promote people to come into Manassas Park. I work in Prince William. I wish I could work on this side, but unfortunately it wasn't that way, so that's where I'm working. But I even talked to some of my teachers who live in Stafford to come and move to Manassas Park. I know there are a lot of obstacles in our way, but I don't think that anything cannot be overcome. And I believe that as long as you have the heart of the people of Manassas Park in your thoughts, and that's what you want to better, their life, public safety, housing, and those things, that I believe that this is going to be a remarkable city. It already is, but it's just going to get better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for applying for this position. There will be a public hearing on February 4th, so next Tuesday, where we will list all the names of the people we interviewed and the public can make comment.
Okay.
And our selection will be announced at our meeting on February 11th. Thank you again for coming.
All right, well, thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
You too.
Thank you, thank you.
Setting up.
Some time.
We did, but you want to keep going?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Governing body again. You heard my statement about Councilmember Javad, so.
Yes.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yes.
We will do an opening statement. You have 3 minutes. Ms. Connor will be keeping the time, and then we'll be asking questions. This time we'll start with Vice Mayor Moore.
All right, sounds good. So my name is Kevin Moreau. I've been a resident for Manassas Park for about 6 or 7 years now. Really enjoyed being a resident of this city and seeing the progress that's been made over time, paying attention to what the governing body is doing and seeing the progress that's been made has been really exciting. About a year and a half ago, I decided to get more involved and join the Economic Development Authority. I've been doing that on a volunteer basis for a year and a half, helping to think through what should our downtown look like. What's the appropriate anchor business for that, and is that the best thing to do for the citizens and residents of Manassas Park? So I've been doing that for a year and a half and heard about the opening seat in the governing body. Thought this might be a better opportunity to serve in a broader capacity. So there's 3 things I'm really interested in. One is the schools, right? It's the biggest part of our budget. I'm a father of 2, so I think being a byproduct of high-quality public schools is important. So that's an important issue to me. Economic development as well, right? So continue to be a voice for that progress that's being made in the city. And then lastly, I think excellence in all other public services, right? So we've had some unusual events happen in the past couple of years, and I think that having police force, fire department that citizens can really rely on and trust is extremely important.
Great. Thanks so much. Vice Mayor?
Yep. Hold on just a second, get my paperwork going here. Mr. Moreau, first of all,
sir.
thank you for applying. Appreciate it. We just completed a general election in which only 4 individuals ran for the seat to join the governing body. 3 were incumbents and 1 was new to the process. If you're interested in serving in the governing body, please tell me why you chose not to run for the seat. And if appointed, do you plan to run this November?
Yes. So the first part of the question, the honest answer is I really didn't consider it. I was, vice chair of the Economic Development Authority. I was kind of doing that in a volunteer capacity. I think once I realized that it was an option and that an appointment was possible, that was something that I might be interested in. So it was kind of an after-the-fact thought, truthfully.
Sure.
To the second part of your question, I've given a lot of thought, and I really think that somebody who is serving on the board can't really be effective in a 9-month time horizon. So I would be seeking election in November because I think that in order to really make a difference, you need to have a decent length of time in that role.
Thank you.
Yes.
What is your vision for our existing parks and green spaces?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest assets of the city are the parks, right? So Blooms Park, Signal Hill, the community center that we have. And I'd like to see those things developed in a little bit more of a user-friendly way. I've hiked Blooms Park, I love it. But I think to echo the comments that we heard from Mr. Maldonado, I think if you had other additional features, and those could be features that small businesses collected some revenue and gave back to the city, that could add amenities to the citizen experience. So I think for Signal Hill, for example, the water park feature is a commercial activity, but it's one that adds value to the citizens. And are there things like that that we could do in Blooms or in other areas near the community center?
Thank you.
Okay, if you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so I will admit that I'm not an expert in the city zoning code. But I do think that the parking situation seems to be the biggest issue that folks have, and it's creating this conflict between folks that are working in small businesses and they have larger vehicles versus the folks that those vehicles are taking up their access to their homes. So I hope that we can think through some sort of, compromise or solution that would work. Does that mean having some space where the commercial vehicles could park that is a little bit further away, which people might not be happy about, but then that could, maybe alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors that are having access issues.
Thank you.
Ms. Moreau, thank you for applying and appreciate you coming tonight. Question I have is Manassas Park, as you probably heard, has the highest tax rate of 95 counties, 38 cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Places hardship on a lot of working people here. So what would you focus on to get that rate down?
Yeah, so I think that I think the best way to do that is to broaden the tax base, right? And that's part of the reason why on the EDA we were thinking through what does that economic development activity in the downtown look like. It's not just about that anchor business, but like all of the other small businesses that go along with that. I remember taking my kids to Little Bowl when it was inside of the grocery store over in Liberia, and then going to the soft launch and seeing like Nid's face realize her vision come true. And I think there's other small businesses and entrepreneurs locally that are going to be able to benefit and have their own economic opportunity through that, as well as improving the tax revenue that is generated from those activities. That's the only way you're going to do it, right? Because with the tax rate, the property taxes on individuals, raising that, you're pretty much maxed out, so that capacity is limited. We're also limited in the amount of free space that we have, so there can be some development in the future in other, strategic areas, but that's kind of confined as well. So bringing in a large anchor business, having those smaller businesses around it in the downtown, I think is the first priority. And then looking down the horizon, maybe 5 or 10 years, thinking about the 28 corridor, that strip of land there, what can be done there to enhance let's say, the potential economic value of that area.
Thank you.
Kind of tagging on that, how would you balance preserving the city's character with the need for new development and modernization?
Yeah, I think one of the other assets that the town has going for it is it's a relatively new city, right? It's not really, we don't have a downtown. The city of Manassas has the old town that's been there for a long time. It has kind of organic growth. We have an opportunity to kind of create that, and that's what I think the board has been doing for the past few years. I see that as a positive thing. So when my family and I go to the Last Friday events or the farmers market, these are things that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago, right? And I lived in the Park 170 apartments, and it's just a big empty lot and the old city hall. So to see where it's come from in those last 5 years has been really transformational, and I'd like to be continuing a part of that. I know there's always going to be folks that have been here for a long time that, that change is maybe not going to be met with open arms, but I think that's what we need for the majority of the citizens to get the tax breaks that they need and economic opportunities that they need.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
It's me again, yeah.
It is.
Should Manassas Park continue to appoint its school board, or should we elect a school board process? And what are the pros and cons on each side, and which side do you come down on?
Sure. So obviously, most counties and cities have a democratic process where they have elected folks. I think that the city of Manassas Park is in a unique position, given its population size of roughly 16,000. I know somebody on the board personally, and I know that folks that when you when you are trying to become part of that body, you're doing it because you're coming from a place of wanting to affect change in a positive way, right? I think that if we made it an elected position, it would kind of raise the burden for folks that are thinking about that as an opportunity. I also think that there's possibility that it could become more political in nature, that in an elected position where you need funding and you need a campaign behind you, you might have folks that are not really running for the best intentions. They might be running for quasi-political reasons versus trying to really help the school district and school system improve. So for that reason, I think having it remain an appointed process makes sense for the city of Manassas Park, because the folks that want that position can sit here in front of you, give those credentials. It's a matter of public record. And then you as the governing body, the elected folks, are making that decision about who sits in those seats.
Thank you.
What updates would you like to see done to our comprehensive plan?
I think that to me, going back to the school system and looking at the budget for the past couple years, while there's been some smaller increases, I think that we really need to think about, are we using those funds as creatively as we possibly can, or is there a way to increase that amount of funding that we're providing the school system for a sustained period of time? The reason why I feel that way is because I think when we talk a lot about what draws people to the city, why are people going to come here? The number of students in the school system is declining, and how do we reverse that trend? And partially it's providing enough housing for people who have families, but part of it is ensuring that families with kids want to come to Manassas Park and remain in Manassas Park. And some of my neighbors have expressed certain issues, and I feel like we could probably, I would like to take a hard look at how do we try to have a sustained increase in the school budget, and how we're allocating those funds in a way that that the residents feel like that things are improving in a sustainable way.
Thank you.
Okay, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Yeah, so I don't, going back to the economic development thing, I think that broadening the tax base is definitely the core of it, right? We need to have more revenue coming in. And I think that, and that's where it gets tricky, right? And I know you're all in this hard, you can't have to raise revenue, but we don't want to raise taxes. And things with inflation costs and things are always moving up every year. So how to reduce inflation, reduce costs in certain areas to make sure that we don't go backwards in time, the place that we came from 5-10 years ago when we were in a bad fiscal situation. So I would take it as the core is, number one, I don't want to be going backwards, right? I don't want to be reducing the reserves. I don't want to be issuing more debt. I think the city is in an upward trajectory, and I would want to maintain that as a core principle, but then think about, what are the areas that we can get creative with, or how can we bring more money in through grants or other programs to supplement the budget?
Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask you an economic development question. I know you answered it in multiple questions. You did, and I appreciate that. I guess my question I may have, a budget issue. If we had to make reductions, where would you target if, for whatever reason, if the revenue is declined and you had to make reductions, what areas would you look to target if you had, what would you do to get us out of a deficit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really given it thought. So I would have to come back to you on that question, but I don't have an answer off the top of my head, no.
Thank you.
So you talked a little bit about how people feel about the school systems, the tax rate, what they get for their investment with their taxes, and some of that is really how they feel, and I think that's driven by the communication that we have, that we send out. How would you help resolve that?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think a lot, and another candidate talked about this, it's about the communication, right? So the services could be being provided, but do people have knowledge of those services, and do they understand the quality for the value that they're getting? And I think that that needs to be done through a number of ways, right? It could be done individual conversations, through town halls, through public events where you're kind of communicating. But I think the messaging is really important, and the frequency of the messaging. So going back, not to use the example of the events, but like we have these events, but is everyone in the community aware that this is happening, and do they feel included, and do they feel like that they're part of it? I don't know if that's the case. I think that as an individual resident, I will get information through a website or through my phone, but I don't know if other people are getting all that information on different parts of town, with different access to technology. So I think that we, as a governing body, as a community, need to do better at what are the channels that we communicate through. Is it English and Spanish? Like, what are the right language? What are the right channels? What's the right messaging? And then what's the right frequency of the messaging in order for people to really understand, okay, this is what's happening. I feel like I have a picture of what's going on. Just as an example, I know that when the previous city manager, Laszlo, was here, he did several town hall sessions. I felt that was really good for him and the mayor to come and kind of present, like, this is what we want to do, this is why we're going to help. People had questions about their taxes, people had questions about the through traffic, and it was a way for the mayor and the city manager to explain the rationale. And so I think you're always going to have people that disagree with the decision one way or another, but I think being open and honest and communicating, hey, here are the trade-offs, and they're real trade-offs, and this is my stance on the issue, and this is why I think it's the best decision overall is going to win the hearts and minds of most people, hopefully.
Thank you.
Great. Would you like to give a closing statement?
Sure. So again, as a professional, almost 20 years in consulting, it's my professional job to work with clients to help them solve problems, both for big corporations, federal government agencies. I've worked in overseas in the United Arab Emirates, lived in London, but kind of been all over the world and worked with a lot of different folks. And I'm hoping to bring that experience and that empathy to the board and help the residents of the city of Manassas Park and make it a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate you
Thank you.
putting your name in. The governing body will hold a public hearing on February 4th. We will list all of the names we interviewed. At that time, public can make comments. And selection will be made at our special meeting called for February 11th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you, everyone.